Hello, Virgo. Your spirit team pulled me toward you today with an unusual urgency, not the gentle, ambient kind of guidance that drifts into a reading like fog, something more deliberate than that, more insistent, the kind of energetic signal that functions less like a suggestion and more like a hand on the shoulder, firm, specific, directional, turn here, look at this. There is something in your person's field right now that cannot wait for a more convenient moment. So here we are. And what they're showing me, what keeps surfacing with a clarity I don't often encounter in this work, is an image of two flames in a room together, neither touching, both burning. The distance between them isn't large. It isn't even particularly intentional at this point. It began as intention, as the mutual, unspoken agreement to maintain a careful space between what's felt and what's expressed, but it has long since stopped being a choice and become simply the shape of things. The architecture of a dynamic that both of you have grown so accustomed to inhabiting that the walls have become invisible and you've stopped noticing them even as they continue quietly to hold you apart. Your spirit team is showing me those walls today, and they are asking me to ask you, how much longer? Let me tell you what they're seeing from where they stand, because the view from the other side of the veil has a quality of simultaneous perspective that we don't have access to from inside our own experience. They see both of you at once. The full landscape of this dynamic, both figures within it, both internal worlds, both the visible surface of your interactions and the invisible interior of what neither of you is saying. And what they see is almost unbearable in its tenderness. Two people who feel exactly the same thing, not approximately the same thing exactly, the same pull in the same direction, with the same mixture of certainty and terror, and the specific, particular longing of someone who is completely aware of what they want and completely unable to move toward it because the other person hasn't moved first. And moving first feels like the most exposed and vulnerable and potentially catastrophic thing imaginable. So you both wait. In the mutual suspension of two people waiting for the other to blink, convinced that the blinking would mean more coming from the other direction, convinced that your own blinking first would somehow make you the loser of a game neither of you consciously agreed to play. Your spirit team is not frustrated by this. They understand it. They hold the full context of everything that made caution feel necessary for both of you. Every previous time the pull was followed toward something that didn't hold. Every wound that taught you to measure the distance before you crossed it. Every moment where the vulnerability of wanting something openly produced a cost that still lives in the body. They understand why you're both standing still. And they're here to tell you, with the particular clarity of those who can see the whole picture, the stillness has served its purpose. It is no longer protecting you, it is keeping you from each other. I want to describe the pull itself because your spirit team is asking me to name it precisely, to put language around something that has been living in you as sensation and instinct and the persistent returning awareness of a specific person so that you can recognize it fully rather than continuing to manage it at the edges of your awareness where it's been residing. This pull is not infatuation. You know what infatuation feels like, the heady, destabilizing rush of newness, the way it occupies all available mental space indiscriminately, the way it has everything to do with projection and very little to do with the actual person. You felt that before. This isn't that. This is quieter than infatuation, steadier, less spectacular, and more fundamental. It's the specific recurring recognition that this person makes sense in your life in a way that you don't fully have a framework for. That something in your system orients toward them with a naturalness that doesn't feel manufactured or chosen, just true. The way north is true. The way a key fits a lock it was made for. You haven't been able to logic it away, and you've tried because you are Virgo and you are exceptionally good at examining your own responses with a clear and somewhat ruthless intelligence. And you have brought that intelligence to bear on this particular feeling multiple times, looking for the place where it's based on projection or wishful thinking or the inflation that loneliness sometimes creates around available warmth. You didn't find that place because it isn't there. What you feel is accurate. What you feel about them is based on what they actually are, not on what you need them to be. Your spirit team needs you to know that the pull is real because the person is real and the connection between you is real, and your instinct, which has been trying to tell you this for longer than you've been willing to fully hear it, is real. Now let me come to them because they are in this reading as fully as you are. Their energy is present, and it is striking in the specific way of someone whose interior weather is dramatically different from their exterior presentation. On the surface, composed, functional, moving through the ordinary business of their days in the way that people do when they've gotten very good at managing the gap between what they feel and what they show. Beneath the surface, consumed, that's the word your spirit team keeps returning to, not obsessed, consumed. The particular state of someone for whom a thought has become so woven into the texture of their daily experience that it has stopped functioning as a distinct thought and started functioning as a background condition. They don't decide to think about you. You're simply there in the undercurrent of everything, in the spaces between their other thoughts, in the quality of awareness they bring to situations, quietly checking whether you're in them, quietly adjusting the temperature of themselves in relation to your presence or your absence. They reach for their phone and set it down again, 17 times probably. The message composed and deleted and composed and deleted in the theater of their drafts folder where nobody can see the evidence of how much they've been trying to reach you and stopping themselves because the reaching feels like it, gives something away, and they are not yet ready or not yet brave enough or not yet certain enough that the ground on your side is as ready as the ground on theirs. They're trying to read your signals the way you're trying to read theirs. Both of you holding a conversation in a language neither of you has spoken aloud. Your spirit team is showing me something now, a specific piece of guidance, and I want to deliver it exactly as it arrives. The waiting is mutual. The feeling is mutual. The fear is mutual. And because all three things are mutual, the situation has arrived at a particular kind of stalemate that will not resolve itself through more waiting. Mutually matching caution doesn't eventually tip into honesty the way that one-sided caution sometimes does when the other person moves. When both people are waiting for the other to move first, the only possible resolution is a moment where one of them decides consciously, deliberately, as an act of chosen courage rather than irresistible impulse to close a portion of the distance. Not all of it. They're not asking you to lay everything bare in a single act of total vulnerability. Your spirit team understands the cost of that, the way it can produce exposure before the ground between two people is quite ready to hold it. But something, a signal that cannot be misread, a moment of honesty that creates an opening, that changes the conditions slightly, that gives this person who is standing on the other side of the mutual silence with exactly your level of feeling and exactly your level of fear something to respond to. You don't have to say everything. You have to say something. There's a specific thing your spirit team wants me to address, and this part of the message feels very directed at you personally. So I want you to receive it fully rather than processing it from a distance. You have been telling yourself a story about this person's feelings, not a malicious story, not even an entirely unfounded one, because the evidence has been genuinely ambiguous enough that the story seemed like reasonable interpretation rather than protection mechanism. The story is something like, they probably feel something, but not what I feel. What I feel is larger. What I feel is disproportionate to what's actually between us. And if I said the full truth of it, the imbalance would become visible, and that visibility would be the most humiliating and permanent form of the rejection I've been most afraid of. Your spirit team needs you to hear this clearly. The story is wrong. The imbalance doesn't exist. The gap you've been imagining between the magnitude of your feeling and the magnitude of theirs is a product of your own protective reasoning, the part of you that learned, in harder seasons, to preemptively diminish your expectations so that disappointment would arrive in a size you could manage. You diminished your expectations. You did not accurately assess their feeling. What they carry is not smaller than what you carry. It is, if anything, and your spirit team is quite specific about this, if anything, they have been sitting with this longer. The longing has had more time in them. The wanting has become more foundational. They are, in the quiet of themselves, more certain than you are. And they've been waiting for you. Something I want to name about the energy between you two, and this is your spirit team speaking very directly now, with the specificity that only comes when they want to make sure something is truly heard. What exists between you is not ordinary. And I don't mean that in the generic spiritual reading sense of everyone's connection being special and meaningful. I mean it in the precise structural sense. The quality of resonance between your two fields has a character that is genuinely unusual. There's a frequency that activates when you're in proximity to each other that doesn't exist in your interactions with anyone else. A frequency that both of you feel as the pull, as the thing neither of you can rationalize away, as the persistent returning awareness of each other that continues regardless of how much time passes or how little contact you maintain. Your spirit team has been working with this frequency, gently over time, creating the conditions for it to be able to express itself fully, arranging the coincidences, nudging the timing, ensuring that paths crossed when crossing was needed and space was preserved when space was necessary. This has not been an abandoned situation from their perspective. This has been actively tended. And what they're communicating now with the urgency I felt when I was pulled toward your energy today is that the tending has reached its conclusion, that the conditions they've been working to create are in place, that the readiness they've been cultivating in both of you has arrived at a threshold. The next move belongs to the human level. They have done what they can do from where they stand. The rest is yours. I want to speak to the fear directly because your spirit team is not asking you to dissolve it. They're not suggesting that the fear is illegitimate or that the courage required to move through it should come easily, or that any of the previous experiences that made vulnerability feel costly were wrong to have shaped you the way they did. They're acknowledging the fear completely, and then they're asking you to move anyway, not because the outcome is guaranteed. They're not offering you certainty. They've never offered certainty, and they won't start now because certainty would remove the meaning from the courage. You move not because you know how it lands, but because the cost of remaining still has finally exceeded the cost of the risk. And the cost of remaining still, the specific cumulative cost of feeling this and not expressing it, of existing in each other's orbit while the pull goes unnamed, of watching the time pass in the particular aching way that time passes when you are near something you love and are not fully in it. That cost is real. You feel it. They feel it. Your spirit team sees you both feeling it. And they are asking with the gentleness of those who hold you in complete love and without judgment when you will decide that the thing you have is worth the risk of trying to keep it. Here is the final message from your spirit team, and I want to deliver it with the full weight they've placed behind it. They are not showing me a warning. They're not showing me a closing window or a deadline or the kind of urgency that carries threat. What they're showing me is an open door, has been open, will remain open for precisely as long as both of you are willing to stand near it. But a door that no one walks through remains, in every practical sense, a wall. They see this connection. They see what it contains, what it could become if both of you allowed it to, what it is already becoming in the invisible space between your silences. They see the full shape of what's possible, and they want you to know that the shape is extraordinary. Not because your love story will be without difficulty or without the ordinary, unglamorous work that all real things require, because it will be real, genuinely, foundationally, worth every risk real. And real things, your spirit team says, are what you came here for. Not the safe approximation, not the comfortable, careful version of living adjacent to what you want, the actual thing. One of you will move first. Your spirit team is not telling you it must be you. They're not delivering a mandate or a should. They're simply showing me the landscape of what's true. And in that landscape, the energy of initiation is gathering, building toward a moment not distant where the silence between you becomes impossible to maintain. They would like that moment to be one of your choosing rather than simply one of your overwhelming. There is a difference between saying the true thing because you've decided to, and saying the true thing because the weight of not saying it finally exceeded your capacity to contain it. Both produce honesty. Only one produces the particular dignity and self-possession that your spirit team knows you're capable of, that they know you deserve to carry into this moment. Choose it. Say the thing. Let the two flames finally understand that they were always meant to occupy the same room. They're with you. Every hesitation, every considered moment, every breath taken before the brave thing they're there, not watching from a distance, beside you, as close as thought, as present as intention. You are not doing this alone. You have never done anything alone. Go toward what you love. Your spirit team rarely speaks this directly, and when they do, it tends to reach exactly the person who needed it most today. If this message found you at a moment when you needed to hear it, I'd love to know in the comments. You don't have to explain the whole story, just, I felt this. That's enough. They'll know